Neanderthals. Our distant cousins who first appeared more than 400,000 years ago, long burdened with a bad rap for being brutish and dim-witted.
We have this understanding of Neanderthals as the ultimate caveman.
More ape-like than they were human.
Perhaps a little thuggish, certainly rather stupid.
But brand new discoveries are telling a completely different story. They were clever.
Neanderthals were really quite capable of designing a technology that was going to serve them well.
Caring, and capable of abstract thought.
There's no way that these weren't meaningful. They knew exactly what they were saying.
So who was the real Neanderthal? And were they really that different from us?
Maybe we are not as unique as we thought.
World-renowned artists and twin brothers, Adrie and Alphonse Kennis, have spent decades using forensic and archaeological evidence to reconstruct lifelike figures of archaic humans. Now, for the Canadian Museum of Nature, they're building a Neanderthal, father and daughter.
We started, of course, with the bones.
One by one, each bone is recreated with a 3D printer, its size and shape derived from measurements of Neanderthal fossils found in the field.
We assembled the whole skeleton. Try to do this as scientific as possible. Then it's based on something.
According to the archaeology, Neanderthals had a stocky physique, shorter than most modern humans, and a large skull with a robust brow. With the skeleton assembled comes the next layer, muscle.
We drilled some holes in the skull and we put in wooden pegs. And those wooden pegs are at different lengths. And the lengths correspond with the tissue thickness in that particular place in the skull. Around the nose you get a thinner skin. Around your cheeks is much more fat tissue, so you have thicker cheeks. Now we put on the muscles and then the skin. If I put all the Neanderthals together we have made already, and you see they've all got the same features. They all got exactly the same features. You can immediately see the difference between the Neanderthal and the Homo sapiens, immediately.
As Adrie finishes the facial muscles of the Neanderthal father, Alphonse is a step ahead of him, working on the daughter.
This is the last piece of skin I put in now. Last piece of skin. She's a proud girl standing in front of her father. She knows the world she lives in. She's standing proud.
Our genealogical ties to Neanderthals go back to a common ancestor who lived around 600,000 years ago, likely in the Middle East or Africa. Then, those who became Neanderthals split from the lineage and spread across parts of Europe and Asia. A vast area that varied from forest to grassland, tundra to frozen terrain during the Ice Age. For over 400,000 years, they were the main human species here, roaming the landscape in small nomadic tribes. But what were those tribes like? Surprising clues lie at the very edge of Roselle Beach in northern France.
On assiste à un petit miracle archéologique. C'est un site actuellement unique.
In the 1960s, cutting tools, butchered animal bones, and fire remains were found in a sand dune. The dune had formed long before humans arrived in Western Europe. So all this must have been left by Neanderthals.
Là, nous sommes sur des niveaux qui ont environ 80 000 ans. Nous n'avons que Néandertal d'attester.
But it was only in 2012 that lead archaeologist Dominique Cliquet and his team uncovered the most extraordinary find of all. Neanderthal footprints.
Oh, elle est belle celle-là.
On en a trouvé une, puis deux, puis trois. On s'est quand même un petit peu gratté la tête. On s'est dit, est-ce qu'on rêve pas?
Donc voilà, un pied de Néandertalien.
Layer after layer of footprints had been cemented in muddy soil, then covered with wind-driven sand. The result is a treasure trove of insight into the lives of Neanderthals, who kept coming back here to spend the harsher months of the year. The team also uncovered smaller footprints, a play area for kids, while their parents were hard at work.
Ça a été un petit peu la séquence émotion, parce qu'on entend presque les cris des enfants qui sont en train de jouer.
Experts had long thought that in a Neanderthal clan system, small groups periodically left the clan behind to go hunt and butcher prey or to make stone tools. But these footprints tell us that this clan stuck together.
Sur ce site, c'est l'ensemble du groupe qui s'est déplacé, et puis les chasseurs qui partaient à la quête de nourriture, les artisans tailleurs qui aussi quittaient le site pour aller chercher les matières premières. Mais on se rend compte sur ce site que l'ensemble du groupe était présent.
To this day, the team keeps finding more prints.
Et une cuillère pour papa.
Each is carefully preserved for further research.
On a peut-être quelque chose ici, je sais pas ce que tu en penses.
Previously, only 9 Neanderthal footprints had ever been found. But the number of footprints uncovered here at Roselle to date is over 1,500. The team believes groups that came here were made up of around 12 individuals of all ages. It's direct evidence of the size and composition of a Neanderthal clan.
Donc en l'occurrence, là, on a un tout petit. Cette empreinte a été tronquée par une empreinte plus grande, qui peut, pourquoi pas, être celle de maman. Et nous avons celle-ci, qui est celle d'un enfant, qui est plus grand que le tout petit.
On est capable de reconstituer les scènes de la vie quotidienne. On a vraiment une représentation de ce que pouvait être le social, l'affectif des individus les uns par rapport aux autres. Donc là, on est loin de cette espèce de cliché du néandertalien brute épaisse et qui se promenait avec une matraque sur l'épaule. Je pense qu'on est très loin de ces clichés.
Piece by piece, new discoveries are building up an incredible picture of who Neanderthals were, including what they ate.
Originally, we had this idea of Neanderthals as being these big game hunters only, and there is a lot of truth to that because they are apex predators, but no humans, ancient or modern, survive on animals alone.
Analysis of Neanderthal teeth has revealed the consumption of a variety of seeds and nuts, grains and greens. But when they did eat meat, what exactly was on the menu? Dr. April Noel has led a forensic study of the blood on ancient Neanderthal cutting tools.
When you look at a stone tool, it doesn't look porous at all. But in fact, there's all these little fissures and so on in there. And so if you think about how you're using the stone tool, you're cutting, you're scraping, you're pushing blood, tissue into those pores, into those fissures.
Her results so far reveal a wide-ranging menu, including rabbit, horse, duck, camel, and rhino.
They're really going to change what they eat depending where they are and when they are. These hominine groups are so much more cognitively, technologically, and socially sophisticated than we would have originally thought.
But while Neanderthals seem to have been adaptable in the kinds of game they ate, we've long underestimated their ability to hunt it. Archaeological evidence suggests that their weapon of choice was the spear. The earliest ever found is around 400,000 years old. But their design has been considered basic, only meant to thrust at their prey at close range. For Paleolithic archaeologists Annemieke Milks, this just didn't ring true.
They would have had to disadvantage the animals first in some way. They would have been putting themselves in very dangerous situations with great frequency.
She wondered, what if some Neanderthals were specifically trained to throw from a distance? Using only stone tools, her team recreated a spear of the same size and spruce wood of those found in the archaeology. The goal? Put Annemiek's theory to the test.
These spears really needed to be tested systematically.
An Olympic javelin can be thrown up to around 100 meters. But how far can a top athlete throw this replica of a Neanderthal spear? UK's #1 javelin thrower, Harry Hughes, is here to find out.
So I wonder how that feels to you.
I mean, first of all, when you pick it up, it is really well balanced. It's certainly not heavy on one side. It's really similar, actually, to the javelins that we use now. So I'm really intrigued to see exactly how they work.
Me too.
Experts think that Neanderthals could only use these spears within 5 meters of their prey.
All right, you come here. All right.
So first, Harry tries to hit his target from 10 meters.
Hey! Amazing. Easy. Brilliant. No problem.
Throw after throw, the spear works like a charm.
Straight through the heart.
Let's see if we can throw it a little bit further.
Let's do it. That's 15 meters.
Okay. Yeah.
That's farther.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely further. Yes.
Fantastic. Amazing.
Even 15 meters seems almost too easy.
Yeah.
Should we try for 20?
Yeah, we can give it a go. Oh, nearly.
Close.
From 20 meters out, Harry struggles to hit the mark.
I think it's the balance.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh!
So close.
But then, with a little practice,
Yes.
Amazing. Fantastic. So that shows right there that for a skilled thrower, easy, no problem, and that the weapons themselves fly at that distance, that it's not too heavy to fly. They fly beautifully, don't they?
I mean, it's actually relatively easy to throw. Flies really true and straight, and it hits the target really hard as well.
Exactly.
I think you could probably go quite a bit further than that as well. If you were practicing it day in, day out for years, you know, actually focusing on the target, I think, yeah, certainly possible.
This just makes a lot more sense, and it makes their hunting capabilities much more flexible than has previously been interpreted. These are not just very short distance weapons. They function well when they are used by a skilled thrower. Neanderthals were really quite clever and capable of designing a technology that was going to serve them well. And that forward planning is a really key feature of an advanced and complex cognition.
At their studio in the Netherlands, Adrie and Alphonse Kennis are in the thick of making sculptures of a Neanderthal father and daughter for the Canadian Museum of Nature. But there's been a problem.
En één hand, één duim ervoor. Zo ja, zo ja. Keer. Beetje breed, zo ja. En zo stond je met je handen, hè?
Heel breed staan.
Though they always base their sculptures on actual ancient fossils, sourcing bones for the hands of a 7-year-old Neanderthal girl has proven impossible. But they have a plan B.
Neanderthal hands, they are more or less the same as our hands. So we can use the hands of a girl of the same age.
Neanderthal and modern human hands look almost the same. The big differences lie in the ligaments and muscle. Neanderthal hands had evolved to fit their hunter lifestyle. They were incredibly strong. If someone today took on a Neanderthal girl in a thumb wrestle, they'd quickly be put to shame.
Koud? Is het koud?
Nee, het is niet koud, maar het is meer slijmerig.
You make a silicone mold of this girl's hands in the right position.
Zwemvliezen!
Ja, kijk. Ja, nou zet ze neer. Ja, maar goed. And then we cast them out in resin.
Oh ja, wacht, als ik mijn duim bij de wijsvinger probeer te doen, dan kan het
verstaan ze toch niet. Die boeren. This is a pose we see on ethnographic photographs, and this is the way children stand. She's wat dikker niet. Yeah! It's a nice imprint of her hands. Nice. Hopefully it will fit on the body of the female Neanderthal child. So.
We know that Neanderthals lived in small nomadic clans. To take shelter, they made open-air dwellings or used cave entrances or rock shelters. But these were much more than just simple spaces to avoid the rain. One of the longest occupied Neanderthal sites on the planet is at La Côte de Saint-Brelade.
It's a place where we can see repeated different reoccupations.
Archaeologist Matthew Pope says Neanderthals used this point as a prime location for over 200,000 years.
We have these cognitively advanced humans coming into a landscape. They can see the affordance of a large ravine system providing them with shelter, that's giving them access to lots of different resources, fresh water, and good hunting opportunities.
But this landscape also records a revolutionary shift in how early humans lived. Around the world, before 500,000 years ago, there is no evidence of anything close to an actual human dwelling.
If we go back to the early stages of human evolution, we find the bulk of artifacts out there in the landscape. We don't even know where these people were sleeping, where they were eating, where the sick were, where children were.
But then, something astonishing seems to happen.
We start to see material that's hunted or scavenged being taken into the cave. Here in a site like the Côte de Saint-Brelade, This is where they're eating, this is where they're sharing food, and this is where they're making tools. So we see this big shift from feeding in the landscape to actually creating homes. And this is really quite revolutionary.
It seems that for Neanderthals, home was where the heart was.
It's far more than an address, it's where we feel safe. It's a place that's fundamental to the human place on the planet, and it's something that Neanderthals participated in creating in the same way as other human species, including our own.
And in these places Neanderthals called home, how did clan members care for one another? Dr. Penny Spickens has the answer. She's spent her entire career exploring the evolution of social emotions in archaic humans.
I'd love to know how Neanderthals actually felt. What were their kind of emotional capacities, the pattern of the way in which they cared for each other?
There's technological sophistication.
Yeah.
To find out, her team analyzed the data from a range of Neanderthal fossils. Bones that revealed a catalog of poor health, disease, and trauma.
We looked at over 30 examples of individuals who had illnesses or injuries from which they may not have been able to survive without the help of others.
One of them is a Neanderthal from about 50,000 years ago, uncovered in Shanidar cave in northern Iraq. His skull tells a horrific tale. At a young age, he suffered a violent head injury.
He's had this crushing blow there. And you can see in the orbit, that's just been crushed. It's smaller, narrower than it should be. It's probably blind as a result of that.
Yeah.
Penny and Matthew Pope survey the shocking scale of his afflictions.
And also he's got injuries to his right foot. So he's got a probable limp, you know, and fairly painful to walk.
He also suffered from a withered arm, which had been fractured in several places.
Now that's the top right arm bone. So that's his upper arm. I think he's either lost that arm or maybe even a deliberate amputation at the time.
But even that's not all. It turns out this Neanderthal could barely hear.
He's got bony growths inside his ear.
That's the actual ear canal in the middle of that, yeah.
So it looks like he's probably completely deaf in one ear with some, if anything, partial hearing in the other.
Such a suite of injuries could be seen as a liability for a clan fighting to survive in an environment full of predators. But what's extraordinary is that this Neanderthal's injuries all show signs of healing. In fact, he lived until around the age of 40.
And he still survived for over a decade.
And perhaps more than that, survived as a valued, cared for member of the community, and that care extending into death.
Absolutely. He's got a whole lifetime, really, of being supported by people around him.
For Penny, this is just one of many examples of a surprising level of care.
In many cases, they've got such severe illnesses that those around them will only have been treating them to kind of remove the pain and make them feel better. So there's no real incentive for them to economically or practically look after these individuals. They're doing so because they care deeply.
Neanderthal healthcare didn't just reflect strong emotional bonds. Ancient bones show impressive medical practices meant to heal and reduce pain.
There's a site in Spain where we found deposits on the teeth, evidence of poplar, which could have been a type of painkiller, and in the same deposits, a type of mold, which could have been used as an antibiotic. So there's a whole variety of healthcare practices, which are probably remarkable when we think of today's standards.
A surprising level of knowledge and care, perhaps the very key to survival.
And the real story of human origins is one of sharing in lots of different ways. Sharing risks in hunting, sharing food after hunting, sharing childcare, and healthcare. Sharing health is only just one part of that much bigger picture in which people cared for the vulnerable.
Recent discoveries are shattering our preconceptions of Neanderthals. The most extraordinary is tucked away in southern France, 300 meters past a tiny cave entrance. An ancient ring, carefully crafted from over 2 tons of broken stalagmites.
On s'arrête, on dit mais oui, mais qu'est-ce que c'est ce truc?
Michel Soulier was one of the first to take in the site.
Et alors là, on se dit, mais qu'est-ce que ça va entraîner par la suite? S'il s'agit de quelque chose hors du commun.
And extraordinary it was. This ancient arrangement had been planned and built by people who knew exactly how to venture deep underground.
Elle est sous terre, techniquement, ça suppose un minimum d'organisation. Il faut forcément un éclairage. Et un éclairage qui est mobile, donc des torches ou des lampes.
There were even fire pits scattered around the chamber, not used to cook food, but to burn animal bones for lighting.
Il brûlait de l'os. De l'os, ça donne beaucoup de lumière. Très peu de fumée, beaucoup de lumière. C'est sans doute lié à l'éclairage.
Whatever the purpose of this imposing structure, experts thought it could only have been the work of modern humans. But exactly when had it been made? Geologist Sophie Verheyden wanted to find out. She had been perfecting a new cutting-edge dating technique and saw Bruniquel as the perfect testing ground.
Je me suis dit là tout de suite, ah bah, c'est incroyable, ici il faut absolument essayer de dater cette structure en datant les stalagmites directement.
The stalagmites had 2 layers, the original minerals and a new mineral coat that had grown over the fragments after they were broken off. Sophie took samples from both for uranium dating to determine exactly when the stalagmites had been cut off to build the structure. While waiting for the results, prehistorian Jacques Jaubert was cautious.
On pensait que c'était relativement ancien, mais relativement ancien pour un préhistorien, c'est 12 000, 15 000, 20 000, 30 000, 35 000 dans les rêves les plus fous.
But the results from the lab blew the team away. This stunning ring is around 178,000 years old. The oldest ever known human construction.
Il y a un résultat qui nous tombe du ciel, et donc là, il faut changer de logiciel, parce qu'on est complètement décalé par rapport à ce à quoi on s'attendait.
It predates the arrival of modern humans in Western Europe by over 100,000 years. The only human species here at the time were Neanderthals.
Ça ne fait que confirmer les capacités cognitives de Néandertal à gérer des projets, et c'est spectaculaire. Il y a même un côté un peu monumental.
We know Neanderthals took shelter in caves. But experts thought they in no way had mastered the art of traveling deep underground. Bruniquel Cave tells a completely different story.
Voilà, Néandertal va sous terre, a été sous terre. C'est une conquête, hein, comme la haute montagne ou les îles lointaines.
But one big question remains. Why on earth did they conceive, plan, and build this mysterious stone circle? For now, the jury is out.
Aller sous terre, c'est un acte artificiel et qui n'est pas environnemental ou naturel. On a suggéré des manifestations rituelles. Il a d'assez bons arguments, mais moi je suis archéologue, il me faut plus de preuves pour aller à une hypothèse de ce genre.
Bruniquel has transformed our understanding of Neanderthal skill set. But did they have the most quintessential human skill of all? The ability to make art. Prehistoric art found in caves symbolizes the moment when the modern mind itself is born. We are all familiar with cave depictions of animals and human figures. But for Canadian paleoanthropologist Genevieve von Petzinger, it isn't these depictions, but what's often tucked away around them that's fascinating. Geometric signs.
What intrigued me when I first learned about Paleolithic art was the little squiggly marks, the abstract signs, the little geometric markings that were often in and around the animals. So like lines and circles and dots. People hadn't really tried to bring them together and see what was going on with them. And so that just got me more intrigued. I just wanted to know more.
So Genevieve embarked on a 2-year trek across Europe to build an inventory of these ancient cave sites. Soon, she started noticing a pattern.
I'm going cave by cave by cave, and so, I was starting to get the impression, like, oh, something interesting is definitely going on here.
It turns out these weren't random markings. The same signs seem to reappear in caves over and over. 52 caves later, Genevieve has uncovered quite possibly one of the earliest forms of graphic communication.
I realized that there was only 32 geometric signs that were being used in these caves, and that is it.
32 symbols used again and again. It's clear they conveyed specific messages.
These weren't purposeful marks. There's no way that these weren't meaningful. I have no doubt that they knew exactly what they were saying.
Experts have long believed cave art was made by early modern humans. But could some of these symbols have been created by Neanderthals? On the outskirts of a small town in southern Spain, an international team of scientists made an extraordinary discovery that may hold the answer.
Hola, Pedro, ¿qué tal?
¿Qué tal?
Buenos, buenos.
Hola.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
For the past 15 years, archaeologists Alistair Pike and João Zilhão and physicist Dirk Hoffman have been crisscrossing Europe, venturing deep into caves to find out exactly when prehistoric art was created.
All right, guys, it's here, right?
This is it.
This is it. We simply wanted to develop an approach that proved our understanding of how old the different styles of Paleolithic art were.
Experts have long believed that cave art is no more than 40,000 years old and exclusively the work of modern humans. But this is based on radiocarbon dating, which only works if the paint itself contains carbon. But the vast majority of cave art doesn't.
90% or more of Paleolithic art is made with red ochre or black manganese that radiocarbon cannot date. So we needed something else.
That something was calcite, formed by water flowing over the cave art over thousands of years.
We can't date the art in most caves directly because those are made of inorganic pigments, but what we can date are these calcite formations.
Since the artwork was made before the calcite accumulated over it, the team wants to determine exactly how old the calcite is.
We can give an age for the calcite and thereby a minimum age for the underlying cave painting.
Though some experts have questioned the reliability of this new technique, it's yielded jaw-dropping results. It seems that parts of these 3 geometric signs in 3 caves in Spain are at least 65,000 years old.
I was really astonished, surprised. I mean, just the fact that cave paintings could be that old was just, wow. I was just wowed.
Okay, we had a sample taken here.
At that time, the only possible cave artists around here were Neanderthals.
There was another one there, yeah.
And in Ardalis Cave lies one of their potential creations.
If you look into the crevices of the curtains, you can see that there are these kind of red splashes of pigment. And these have been formed by somebody blowing or spitting pigment into these crevices. And this is 20,000 years before modern humans arrived in this area. So this piece of art must have been made by a Neanderthal.
Though cave signs are more basic than later cave depictions of animals and people, they are crucial evidence of abstract thought on par with modern humans.
If you're capable of producing art, if you're capable of symbolic thought, then you're probably capable of language and communication. What is art except a form of communication?
People that are using these symbols to communicate are basically like ourselves. I think that changes entirely how we understand human evolution, and within that, the evolution of the mind.
We now know that in many ways, Neanderthals were very similar to modern humans. But one astonishing discovery has revealed that the very stories of our evolution are intertwined. In 2010, using Neanderthal bone fragments, experts actually sequenced the complete genome of a Neanderthal. They then compared this to the DNA of modern-day humans. The results stunned the world.
We see traces of Neanderthal DNA in all modern non-African individuals. In other words, there are parts of their genome that remain in some of us.
Roughly 50,000 years ago, modern humans migrated out of Africa and into the land of Neanderthals. Now it seems that when they did, the two species got up close and personal.
Not only did they live in the same places at the same times, but actually they interacted and were similar enough that they could produce successful offspring.
Today, Neanderthal DNA makes up around 2% of the full genetic code of people of non-African descent. So how has this Neanderthal heritage impacted us? To find out, geneticist Tony Capra and his team are using anonymous medical records and genetic data from almost 30,000 people of European descent. They pinpoint the sections of Neanderthal DNA in each person's genetic makeup, then check their medical history to spot any patterns.
We can ask if people who have Neanderthal DNA at some particular place in their genome are more likely to have a particular disease than people that do not.
It's a mammoth task that needs almost 10,000 times the processing power of your typical laptop.
Human genomes are big, Neanderthal genomes are big, and when I say big, I mean billions of the molecules that make up DNA. And when we throw in health records that often have hundreds of different pieces of information in them, we have to use computers to sift through all these different types of data and detect patterns.
So far, the team has spotted surprising ways Neanderthal DNA has impacted us. It's boosted our immune system, made our skin more sensitive to sunlight, and increased our susceptibility to depression and addiction. For Neanderthals, an addictive personality may have been essential for survival.
Perhaps it could have made them seek out certain sources of food more obsessively. Perhaps it could have made them pay particular attention to certain things in their environment more than others.
But in today's modern world, it can make us prone to completely different things, like nicotine addiction.
But of course, this increased risk is actually a very small component of your overall risk for smoking or not. So unfortunately, we can't blame Neanderthals for our addiction to cigarettes.
What we've inherited from Neanderthals is only the beginning of what we can learn from their DNA.
Having Neanderthal DNA creates all kinds of new opportunities to study what they were like in ways that we couldn't from their fossils. So for example, what were their brains like?
Perhaps one way we can understand the mystery of human evolution is by exploring the intricacies of our brain functions. So just how are the brains of Neanderthals and modern humans fundamentally similar or different? At the University of California, Professor Alison Muotri and his team are leading a bold new study to try to find out.
I started becoming very interested in human brain evolution since I was young. I wanted to know who we are as a species.
And what better way to learn how the modern brain develops than by comparing it to that of a Neanderthal?
What we do now is what we are calling neuroarchaeology. So we have the fossil records, and we can even extract the DNA from these bones. So that allowed me to start doing some of the initial genomic comparisons between modern humans and the Neanderthals.
Using DNA editing tools, Alison and his team have introduced Neanderthal genes into human stem cells and grown Neanderthalized mini-brains, or brain organoids. These pea-sized clusters of nerve cells and tissue are then compared with human brain organoids.
And we only see one or two here, and they're quite healthy.
And already, the difference between the human and Neanderthal brain organoids is striking.
The modern human brain organoid has a very spherical shape. However, the ones carrying Neanderthal variants, we call them popcorn shape. So we right now are trying to figure out exactly how that happens.
Neanderthal organoids have also developed some particular brain networks that Alison is still trying to make sense of.
We look for networks that can give us a clue into how the Neanderthal brain was wired. The only thing that we have in the lab that resemble these networks, more or less, is not identical, but they get close to that, are some of the autistic individuals. What does it mean? Does it mean that they have extraordinary abilities, like some of the autistic subjects? Or does it mean that they have problems in communication and socialization? That we don't know.
Exactly how do Neanderthal mini-brain networks evolve? To find out, Alison wants to connect one to a robot.
So we are putting those networks to a test, where we create a brain-machine interface, where we use these brain organoids to control a robotic platform.
As the robot explores its environment and sends feedback to the organoid,
The sensors now are detecting the wall.
how does the Neanderthal mini-brain adapt and tell the robot what to do next? And how does it learn? And how does this process compare to that of modern humans? The results of this cutting-edge research remain to be seen.
It is very exciting because it was never done before. We have no idea how the Neanderthal organoids will perform. Either way, it's going to be a very interesting result.
Thanks to modern science, a Neanderthal brain may one day come to life, opening a whole new window into our understanding of our distant cousins and ourselves. Back in the Netherlands, Adrie and Alphonse Kennis are putting the final touches on the Neanderthal father and daughter. They'll soon be on their way to the Canadian Museum of Nature.
We finish it here in this place with the skin and everything, with the hair. And then we see then we are satisfied or not. It has to be authentic. We want to have real people. Get rid of all the old cliches. That's an ape man. It's a normal guy who lived 60,000 years ago.
These are lifelike figures crafted from the bones up, based on novel research. And in the end, they look like someone we might know.
What we're learning about Neanderthals is telling us that if we could interact with them, if we could interbreed with them, then they really were very similar to us.
Kijk, daar een kleurtje. En dan hier eentje zo en hier een heel lang.
Celebrity acting. You assess intelligence on the basis of what people actually did. You find no difference between what people we call Neanderthals and people whom we call modern humans in Africa were doing at the same time.
I think we need to fully embrace Neanderthal people as human, and we become more human by accepting them into our world.